All right, go ahead and roll for perception.
I got a 13.
Hey, that's pretty good. With that, you can tell there's some fantasy situations going on. You hear some adult language, and with that, you can tell this podcast probably isn't for kids.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Will.
And I'm Brian.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons, from fugly Fomorians to fantastic forces. And today, we're talking about the Genasi.
Prepare yourselves. I cast Fireball. The Dungeoncast.
Okay, Brian.
Okay,
we have done it. We have finally done it.
What have we done?
We've made it out of the player's handbook.
Whoa!
Yes, we're covering our first race that is not in the PHB.
Crawling and scratching. We have made it, everybody.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Which isn't to say we've actually finished the PHB. There's still one race in the PHB we haven't done. I just feel like we'll probably talk about that at a later date. Humans can get their episode later.
Keep one in the chamber for that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But today we're talking about the Genasi, or the Genasi, or the Genasi, or the Genasi. I actually don't know how to pronounce the word and didn't bother to look it up, but I've always called them the Genasi, so I don't think that's going to change.
Depending on how you roleplay them, I prefer Genasty.
Okay, fair enough. So the Genasi, for people who don't know, are humanoid creatures that are basically humans that have been imbued with elemental power, specifically a single element, one of the four
basic four,
classic,
right?
Yeah, one of the classic four, usually.
Earth, wind, water, fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Heart.
No,
Just kidding.
No, not heart. There used to be a fifth one in 4th edition, and there have been others in other editions. And
Oh, Storm.
yeah, Storm was
Storm
in 4th
was really
edition.
cool.
Yeah. Now the way Genasi come about varies a little bit from setting to setting. The most common one, and the reason they're named the Genasi, is they're usually have some sort of Genie ancestry.
Right, okay.
Now, Genies in D&D are very elemental based.
Right. Their coloring is kind of in line with what Genasi look like.
Right, yeah. Genasi look a lot like...
As far as like monster manual depictions and player's handbook stuff.
Right, exactly. And Genies in D&D, they kind of come in 4 flavors. One for each of the classic elements. Again, air, fire, earth, and water. Now, let's talk a little bit about Genies before we get into Genasi, just so we have that kind of foundation set.
Okay.
So Genies in D&D usually come from the elemental planes, which there are 4 elemental planes plus a 5th plane that kind of connects them all and is represents all 4 of them.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a plane of water, plane of air, plane of earth, and plane of fire. And the way a genie is said to be born is a sentient spirit fuses itself with innate elemental magic of this realm. Ooh. And the creature that is born from this bond
lives in a bottle.
No, no, but it is a genie.
Okay.
Although I suppose you could trap a genie in a bottle, much like the classical Arabian tales. But
yeah, I have a very limited knowledge of what a genie really is. I've watched Aladdin, the movie. Robin Williams. Hell yeah.
And Robin Williams' Genie, named and dubbed Genie, would actually fall into the Air Genie categorization, which they're called Jinn or Genie.
Yeah.
In this game. Let's talk about that. So they come in 4 flavors. The air ones are called Jinn. The fire ones are called Ifriti or Ifrits. The water ones are called Marids, and the earth ones are called Daos.
Okay.
All of these names are derived from ancient pre-Islamic, like Arabic mythology.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. Generally speaking, in these old Arabic folktales, like most genies outside of like the ones trapped in a lamp that would grant your wishes are pretty much evil and very dangerous, and I think that follows in this game as well. Genies are very dangerous in this game and very powerful. They're the type of thing you would make a warlock pact with.
Yes. Now, following the canon of our podcast that we do and what we've covered, I have learned that evil in D&D is represented in a multitude of forms. What kind of evil are you? Are you fey evil? Are you great old one's evil? Are you your typical I'm a human and I'm just going to be a murderous bum?
Yeah, evil comes in many flavors
yes.
in this game, and it definitely outnumbers good in a lot of ways. Genasi, excuse me, not Genasi, but genies aren't. Sorry, some genies are just straight up evil. Like Dao and Ifrits are fucking evil, like super evil. Meanwhile, like Marids, they're nasty creatures and they're very selfish, but they're technically chaotic neutral. And then Jinn are technically chaotic good, but they're also troublemakers and very mischievous. And much like the Fae, these creatures are very alien-minded, and they don't have the same type of morality that mortals would have.
Okay.
And
they live in their own moral bubble.
Pretty much. Also, like much like a lot of the other like powerful creatures in this game, they have massive egos and they think they're like the center of the universe. And so the way that they're related with Genasi is it's said that sometimes they exit the elemental planes and they go to wander the mortal world in mortal form, and sometimes they fornicate, and the beings that are born as things do, and the beings born from that were Genasi.
Okay. So it's not a because we have like Dragonborn and what did we end up discussing on Dragonborn about how they came about? Were they born of like humans and dragons, right?
That's one interpretation of how they could be. The other is they were like a slave race created by dragons.
Yeah. So this is a completely kind of different take on that. So it's two genies get together and do their deeds, and Genasi are born, is what you're saying?
No. Genasi are born from a mortal and a genie.
Oh, it is like that. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood you.
Genies actually don't pair with each other. That's another thing, but genies, and I don't want to talk too much because genies are going to get their own episode, but genies don't like each other. Yeah. Very egocentric. Genies are, they view themselves as nobility. Oh. And they like to have followers that serve them.
I see.
They love to be served. They love to live in their palaces and their mansions, and they view themselves as kings and queens. But anyways, the Genasi are only born of a mortal and a genie.
Got it. Okay.
Now, I think the lore behind Genasi has kind of developed to the point where there's enough of them where they're kind of their own race now. Genies don't really come into it as often. Right. It's just Genasi have children with other Genasi.
Yes, and now they've established their own communities and societies.
Exactly. And like if an air Genasi and a fire Genasi have a child, it could be either.
Got it. Okay.
I think it might even could be something else technically. Another way Genasi are said to come about is if there's some sort of planar phenomenon when a child is born, it might influence it into becoming a Genasi. Like I don't know, like a terrible rainstorm or maybe like a child born during a magically induced like sea storm might be born a water Genasi or something along those lines. Yeah.
Like there's just a lot of that magical elemental energy hovering around.
Exactly.
Now your baby's something else.
Exactly.
Surprise.
So it is.
Babies are highly at risk in D&D. Always.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They're like constantly in danger. You don't know if a hag is going to come steal it. You don't know if a storm's going to change it into different species. You don't know what's going to happen.
Public service announcement for fantasy people of any campaign setting: watch your infants.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are okay. So we have our four normal elements. We have fire, water, earth, and air. There are also 6 para elements, which I think this is really interesting in D&D that I've only seen this in D&D, and I think it's really cool. Between the 4 planes of air, water, earth, and fire, the planes touch, and when they touch, they influence each other and create like a plane that like lies somewhere between the two. Okay. So, for example, when the place where the plane of air and the plane of water touch, it creates a icy plane of existence called the Frostfell. Ooh. Where water and earth touch. I think it's water and earth. It creates like an endless bog, if you will. Swampy. Called the plane of ooze.
Ooh, okay.
And because of that, there are 6 para elements that fall between the 4. And they are as follows. There's dust, ice, magma, ooze, smoke, and steam.
I was going to ask if steam was one of them. What if that
fire
fire touched that water?
Exactly. There's a plane of steam. And
I'm a steam Genasi.
Yeah, in second edition and third
Fear
edition, you could
me.
have those. Yeah,
Fear my sauna.
yeah, absolutely.
Trap you in this room
what
for
a weird,
hours.
like, I'm a steam Genasi. What a weird character choice, but that's cool.
Fear this Fear this device I've built that runs on a rail. I power it with my energies.
There
It's
you
a
go.
train.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Now those don't exist yet in 5th edition, and I actually didn't. I think the magma one specifically exists in 4th edition, but for completely different reasons. In 4th edition, they dropped all the para elements. They kept the 4 original elements, and then they just randomly added Storm, which is the best one as far as I'm concerned. But for no reason, there's a Storm one now. We're not going to explain. There's no Storm Genies that I know about.
Yeah,
Like,
just
there's no Storm plane of existence that I know about.
It always caught me off guard that they I know the powers and stuff are really cool and like they translate well to D&D, but as far as explaining it, I never saw any kind of explanation. So that very interesting.
And then they instantly dropped it for 5th edition, and now we just got the basic 4 again.
Right.
And I have a feeling that we're going to see the 6 para elements reemerge in this edition, just because 5th edition is very traditional, and they're not going to pull a lot of the new stuff, like the newer lore that came out in 4th edition. They're going to go back to, well, this is what it originally was, so we're going to pull from there.
Okay.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's actually talk about the Genasi as a people.
Yes.
So they tend to live in either the mortal plane or
The elemental plane?
the elemental plane that corresponds with their element. More commonly, they're going to live in the mortal world because the elemental planes suck. They're a really dangerous place to live, and most Genasi have terrible relationships with their Genie parents.
Yeah, and you don't want to just live in a plane of fire because that sounds hazardous to mortal skin.
Right. So they vary wildly, I've seen, in appearance. Not just because each element looks drastically different from the other, but just like across the editions, like I've seen, like sometimes their Genasi have hair. Sometimes they have like wispy, like wind for hair. Sometimes
Yeah.
they have like crystals
Yes,
for hair.
yes.
Like it just varies.
Or like thick locks that float, kind of like
Yeah.
like the wind is constantly influencing or like coming from them almost.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I've seen Air Genasi with green skin, other times with blue skin, other times with silver skin. Like it seems to just wildly vary. It really just depends on what you want them to look like.
Yeah.
In 4th edition, they really stressed that there were these elemental magic lines. What were they called? That started with an S. Not schisms. They were called Suldar. That's what they were called. And they would just line their arms and legs and chest and whole body.
Oh shoot. Okay.
And there was a different color for each element. I don't remember what they are. But those seem to have dropped now. In 5th edition, they don't have those anymore.
Okay.
I've seen where water Genasi are probably the most likely to have hair for some reason. They're the most likely depicted with hair. But sometimes they have green skin, sometimes they have blue skin, sometimes they have scaly, like fish type
Yeah,
skin.
I've seen that. Yeah, I think the one in the player's handbook kind of has got some fins going on.
Yeah, and that's cool. I've seen that as well. Also,
Nice flavor.
Although that kind of treads on like some other races, like the Tritons, which are blatantly like aqua people.
Okay. Yeah, like for Genasi, like an air Genasi is kind of like it's air. There's wind, and
Yeah.
and that's pretty much what you got. Clouds, I guess. Maybe it's technically water. I guess I don't know. But for a water Genasi, there's a lot of variation. Are you like based off of the ocean, the lake, the river,
Right.
like the storms and rain or whatever? What is your, like how you were saying with the like your baby's born during an ocean storm becomes a water Genasi? What could that look like?
Yeah, and that could affect it. I think most commonly Genasi depict their element in its purest state. Fire Genasi sometimes have flames for hair. Other times they just have hair that's like red.
Definitely cool. Like if you're chill, like a Ponyta, like if you're chill with Ponyta, you can totally touch Ponyta.
Absolutely.
And if you're a fire Genasi and you like somebody, they can run their hands through your hair and it's fine.
Yeah, and it'll be fine.
Or in a last resort and you want to do a D4 damage, you could headbutt somebody. And maybe it would burn the shit out of their eyes.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing is each Genasi gets certain features that depict like their element's magic of their element, and the fire ones usually get sort of fire damage spell of some sort.
Yeah, really cool.
Earth Genasi are usually bald, But I've also seen where it's like they got like almost like stony ridges.
Yeah,
So-
I've seen them with dreadlocks and like
I've seen
lots
that
of cool,
too.
I love the flavor for the Earth Genasi that they write in the player's handbook. They've like always got some kind of dirt clad on them or like dust coming off them, like Pig Pen from Charlie Brown.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Exactly. You're just always dirty.
You just always
And
got that
There's
Earth
nothing
on
you could do
It's
about
like,
it.
where the fuck did this even come from?
Yeah,
I've been in
you
this tavern all night.
You just always have mud on your uniform no matter what you do.
Who did this? Oh wait,
Sometimes sometimes Earth Genasi have brown skin. Sometimes they have like gray or black skin. Sometimes their skin is metallic. Sometimes it's stony. Like it really just depends on how you want to flavor it. And I kind of like that. I like that this one race could just look and be so many things. It's really cool. Let's talk about the psychology of Genasi. They tend to be a very wild and changeable and adaptable and chaotic race, much like their elements. And each one kind of varies in psychology depending on their element. But they're very ambitious people. They're all about betterment of self. They're almost to a point of being self-obsessed in a way.
yes.
And I think a lot of Genasi come across as selfish because of that. But they're all about talent, and they're all about skill. And because of that, like Genasi societies tend to be a meritocracy where it's like your station is based off the merit of your talent and your abilities. So it leads to like a society with like, I like to say it's a society of no nobles, just rock stars.
Nice.
Where everyone's like, and because of that, they're super into the arts a lot of the time. They're oftentimes Genasi are like great sculptors or artists, and not the same way that like elves and dwarves are. Like we kind of talked about how they're traditionalists of like hone their art.
Yes.
Genasi are always like innovating and trying something new and different and like trying to redefine the genre of whatever the hell it is they're doing.
They're modernizing everything.
Yeah, they modernize everything. Like they're always like at the cutting edge.
So like if you're a squad of sailors, maybe your boat captain is your most skilled sailor.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's exactly how I think it would go.
Or the head of the art school is like the most innovative or like most skilled sculptor.
They
or
highly
whatever.
prize that kind of stuff.
Right,
And I kind of get it. I think it's really cool. Also because of like their ability to adapt and like this kind of like ambition and pursuit of self-betterment, they're really, really on par with humans when it comes to like innovation and adaptability and all that, which is
Just
something humans are known for.
That general getting shit done mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Genasi, if they weren't so few in number, they probably would dominate much the way humans do.
Yeah. What are we getting into like the societies that each element holds, like as far as numbers and as far as structure goes? Are we getting into that later? Or
No, we can talk about it now because like there's really nothing too established. I mean, Forgotten Realms has Genasi, and they have like, I know that there's the city of Airspur, which has the Queen Arathane, and they're like a full blown city with a queen and whatnot.
Nice.
But like,
And is it all the Genasi blended together, living together?
in Airspur, yeah, but also I've seen where they're more like just they keep to their element.
Yeah, like the air Genasi live here and the water Genasi live here, and
Yeah,
so on.
I've seen that as well. I mean, that's pretty common. I've also seen where like they don't have much of a society at all because they're so independent and kind of self-serving. Like they kind of just wander and go their own way. They don't have like big communities.
And that makes for good adventuring.
Yeah, I would say so. But again, like I've seen the opposite where they do have cities and it's all about art and like I said, no nobles, just rock stars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it really does vary, and it's really up to the DM how you want Genasi represented. And so I think if you're a player looking to play a Genasi in your game, you might want to talk to your DM and be like, well, where do these weird people kind of fit in your world at all?
Yeah, you have to figure out a few things like are you from the city and are you originating from there, or are you wandering? Are you like a team of nomads that are just like happen to be this flavor of Genasi that are wandering the earth? You get split up. There's lots of different ways to approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of their changeability and the nature of their chaoticness, they are also a very contradictory race where like an Air Genasi might feel strongly one day about something and feel totally the opposite not too much later in life, like, and then it goes back, like they go back and forth. They're all over the place. They're very passionate, very emotional. They wear their emotions on their sleeves, unlike a lot of other races. Yeah. They're not the most loyal, I guess you could say, just because they're all over the place. And again, like they are very self-serving. But I imagine a friendship with someone who's a Genasi to be very frustrating normally.
Okay.
Speaking, if you're role playing it in the way that the book describes they are. They're quick to love, they're quick to hate, they're quick to anger, they're quick to laughter. They're all over. They're bipolar.
Yeah,
they're the bipolar race of the game.
Their emotions are out on their
place.
sleeve.
Yeah.
And they're living in the moment, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Because of this, and again, their self-serving nature, they're very rarely religious. They're very much more often drawn to the arcane arts and the martial arts. And it's all about bettering the self, like pushing the art form, pushing the arcane form. Because of their innate elemental magic, you're going to see a lot of Genasi sorcerers, even if their ability scores don't necessarily complement it. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're each Genasi is inherently fused with some kind of magic that gives them a little, like they have like a once a day spell that they can burn pretty much.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that. So in previous editions it's different, but we're going to talk mostly about 5th edition. So like So the air Genasi, they get the levitate spell?
Yeah, mingle with the wind, I think it's called.
Is that the feature? Is that the name of the feature?
Yeah. And it casts levitate.
Yeah, you get a cast levitate once a short rest or once a long rest?
I think it's once a long rest, and it's you pick an object. If it's willing, it doesn't have to make a save. It just goes up 30 feet.
Right.
And you can kind of determine where within that 30 feet.
So and you just get that. You get that at level 1, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I think I had it from the start.
Yeah, so yeah, you just get this innate ability to do some wind shit.
Yeah, and you could do it
edition-
on yourself. You could do it on I did it on an enemy one time, and they saved out of it and like fell 30 feet, but they didn't. They landed in like water, so it didn't matter.
I remember that
because you could do technically like if they fail to save one turn and then pass the save the next turn, they would take like 30 feet of falling damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely how I would use that spell.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in 4th edition, Air Genasi got a short rest ability to fly for, I think, 50 feet.
That's so
which
cool.
Which is really cool.
I wish that the 5th edition one had that because I always try to use the mingle with the wind to like propel myself to places. And you can do that, but it
takes multiple turns, doesn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. It's just hard because I want to like do a big jump basically is what I want to do.
Right.
Like once per, like you get it once per rest. It seems like you should be able to do a little more with it, but
I agree with that. I think the tying of their element to specific spells while being very traditional traditional D&D thing to do. Tieflings do it, ASMR do it.
Yeah.
Other races, I'm sure, like elves, they get the same kind of stuff. I think it's also a lazy way to build a race because like it should be a little bit more than that. But I mean, you do get other things like Air Genasi don't need to breathe.
yeah, the unending breath,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, you just hold your breath forever and it doesn't matter. You won't die.
I had a lot of fun. For the listener, when Will was running his campaign, I played an Air Genasi in it, and it was a fighter, really cool Battlemaster fighter. It was really fun to role play him. I would just be like in tense situations, be like, I hold my breath, and then I never have to remember to not unhold my breath.
No, yeah, absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
I don't think Air Genasi get a resistance in this game. Did your Air
No,
Genasi?
I don't remember one.
Okay. In 4th edition, each Genasi soul type, and that's what they were called. You are either Storm Soul or Wind Soul or whatever.
Oh, cool.
Which is a really
I like
cool
the
way to
flavor
put
of
it.
that,
Yeah. You would resist. So like an Air Genasi would resist cold damage.
Nice.
Fire, water, I think resists acid and still does.
Oh, cool.
And then earth resisted. I think they used to resist force damage, but I might be misremembering that. It doesn't matter because they don't do that anymore. Earth Genasi get like pass without a trace, which is that basically they can, as long as they're walking on earth, like they don't leave any type of trace if they cast that spell.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Water Genasi.
Almost considered the Earth Genasi. Almost.
Oh yeah, you got close.
Yeah. I like them a lot.
Yeah, I like the Genasi in general. Although I think Earth is probably my least favorite.
Okay.
I think Air is the most common favorite I usually see, and my personal favorite, what's available right now, because Storm's better. But then I think Fire, and then Water, and then Earth. But that's just me. So Fire Genasi get resistance to fire, and they get the produce flame cantrip, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
And then I think level 2 or 3 they get burning hands as a spell, which is also really cool. Water Genasi, we talked about they resist acid. They
obviously they can breathe underwater.
They can breathe underwater. They can't hold their breath. They need to breathe, but they can breathe underwater.
Yeah. So for application purposes, my air Genasi can be underwater for as long as your water Genasi.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Unless you're unconscious. I found out that you can't be unconscious and use unending breath.
Oh, so if you got knocked out and knocked in the water, you would drown?
Probably.
Oh shit. Okay. Interesting.
Unless someone saved you.
Yeah, exactly. Water Genasi, they get the shape water cantrip and create destroy water later.
That seems
level.
really cool. Can you do ice with that? Do you know?
I don't think so.
It probably falls outside of the. You need like water.
It needs to be water.
Create and destroy water. Like you can get rid of an obstacle. Maybe how much does that affect area wise?
I don't know for sure, but I'm sure the spell says exactly.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little tired, and I think it's time we took a short rest.
I think we should.
All right.
Hello, listener, and welcome to the part of the episode where we do not talk about what we were talking about and start to talk about something else, which is us and you. Let's talk about you. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate it. Can't say enough how much we like seeing all of the feedback and everything that we've been getting. It's really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we're hoping if you're enjoying the show, you spread the word, and to help promote that, we're also running a contest. We're giving away 3 Hero Forge minis completely customized to your customization. And in order to enter the contest, all you have to do is tweet a link to an episode of the show or a playlist or just one of our websites, and with the hashtag Dungeoncast, and you'll be entered to win one of the minis. We're pulling 3 names on July 4th, so you have until July 4th to do this. But yeah, spread the word.
Yep, follow us on Twitter at the Dungeoncast and tweet out that link with hashtag Dungeoncast, and you will be entered to win a Hero Forge mini. Please do it and help spread the word about the show. We really appreciate that. We don't really get too many things out there to help promote, but if you could help us out, that would be wonderful. You can find us on soundcloud.com/the Dungeoncast. You can search for us on YouTube. Just search the Dungeoncast, should come up. Any podcast app, you can find us on there. If you have an iTunes account, please put some feedback on there for us. We really appreciate that. That really helps people out in the iTunes charts and things like that get noticed, and it would really help out the show. Do we got anything else for this part of the episode?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good too. So why don't we get
back to the show?
That's the word. Let's get back to the show.
All right.
Welcome back, everybody. We just took a short rest.
Yeah, we did. I feel okay.
I feel okay. What were we talking about, Genasi?
Yes, we were talking about Genasi.
Hell yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, number one, the first character you ever rolled was a Genasi. You chose Air Genasi. So I wanted to ask, what attracted you to the Genasi? Why did you decide to play them, and what was your experience like?
I really love Avatar: The Last Airbender, as I mentioned on the show in the past. And I was looking through the player's handbook as recommended by you. Say, hey, take a look through here and see what it is that jumps out. And I was like, oh shit, the 4 elements. Like I think I was just getting off the Legend of Korra, just finishing up that show when we first started playing, and I was just in the spirit of it. I was like, okay, let's see, what would I want to do? And I was looking at the abilities, and like, it's like, oh man, it would be really cool to role play like an airbender kind of that has like this idea of freedom and like like kind of not necessarily, I don't want to say balance, but I was going to run it as like a neutral good character. That was just like like in the spirit of a Genasi would want to kind of shape their skills and really make them like the master of something or a few things. You know, they really I made them into like raised by dwarves, so it ended up being like a blacksmith and a fighter, and really loved to like make the weapons and armor that they took into combat. and used to slay enemies. And so I thought it'd be really cool. And what I really didn't take into account when I was role playing this character was the influences from the other characters that would kind of help shape this person.
Right.
So it ended up kind of getting away from me a little bit, which was nice. This character Rohan took shape and form in like its own way, and became kind of something else while still embodying all these ideals. So I tried to keep true to like this, even though there's no other Genasi around or anything like that.
Yeah, there really
I try
isn't.
to kind of keep it like my inherent, like my subconscious choices that this character is going to make as like, is this in line with a Genasi? Even though there's all these extra influences from outside, kind of pushing this character one way or the other.
Right.
I'm still a Genasi, and those things are going to come out.
Right. Okay.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
I thought air would be one of the best to pick because of its like air or water are more adept to like changes and things like that as an element. They shape and form around whatever comes into contact with them. And I thought that would be really good for this as a new adventure to the world, to kind of let it take and shape. And that's would also help me stay true to being like this character.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, and I love your Air Genasi character. That was really cool, and it's actually hilarious that he's a Genasi raised by dwarves. That's so bizarre, but I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's got a lot of heart.
So we talked a little bit about how the Genasi, as a general people, are very changeable, very adaptable, very capricious, very selfish. But there's also differences between the four of them. And like, for instance, Air Genasi are known to be the most nimble, the most sneaky, the most like free-spirited, and again, probably the most changeable of the four.
Yeah, my character is like low-key into free running. Like I was able to do some
Which
free
makes a
running
lot of
over some
sense.
buildings.
Like, if I was Air Genasi, I'd fucking free run too, because like you weigh half the weight of what you look like or whatever.
Yeah, and I obviously put my stats. I dumped them into decks and things like that, just to like help kind of boast that.
Yeah, absolutely. The fire Genasi are known to be impatient and very quick to anger.
Yeah, passionate.
Yeah, very passionate. Yes. The water Genasi are known to be the most patient and the most wise. Usually, they're usually also the ones most likely to have like they're the most cunning.
Cunning. Okay.
Cunning is definitely how I would describe them.
I voted them most likely to heal in high school.
Scheming. They can be scheming as well.
Like kind of evil.
They could be. I mean, they're definitely self-serving, which kind of that comes across as kind of nasty. But
okay. I always like taking the Avatar elements, like water was always really like community based,
right?
So that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, and you could totally do that. Absolutely. Yeah. I think of all the Genasi that are the ones that are most likely to be religious might be the water ones, because
I always pictured them as clerics.
Yeah. And to add on top of this, Air Genasi, much to reflect their nimbleness, they get a +1 to Dex.
Right.
The water Genasi get a +1 to Wisdom. I believe the fire Genasi get a +1 to Charisma, which makes sense. They got powerful, fiery personalities.
Yeah.
Earth Genasi tend to be the strongest, sturdiest builds, and they tend to be the slowest to make decisions. They're the most considering of Genasi. They're the least changeable.
Stubborn and
they tend to be stubborn. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Really cool. That was one of the reasons I wanted to play an Earth Genasi. I was like, I want to be like this kind of stubborn guy that's like, no, I want to do this and I want to do it this way and I want to like charge in.
Yeah, kinda. I can see Earth Genasi being like that, much like a dwarf.
Like I break down the door.
Yeah, much like a dwarf.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about racial relationships with Genasi. They usually do most of their intermingling with humans, and they tend to get along really well with humans.
Nice,
because they're a lot like humans.
Yeah, they're probably one of the closest things to humans.
Yeah, despite looking so drastically different.
Right.
Absolutely. In all my experiences, you don't see a lot of them interacting with other races. I think elves don't have a lot of patience for them. Because like elves already don't have a lot of patience for
anybody.
Humans, because humans are to them like ever changing, overly ambitious, overly this and that, and like the Genasi are just that more so. So it's like I imagine elves find Genasi very childish.
These little annoying, impatient flashes in the live stream.
I think dwarves and Genasi probably would get along pretty well, just on the artisan side of things. But they probably don't like the fickleness of Genasi because, again, dwarves aren't fickle at all. They're quite the opposite.
Yeah, they stay in one place and they like to do what they
say
do.
What they mean. They mean what they say. Their opinions don't change almost ever. Another thing I want to talk about real quick, and this is something that was in 4th edition, and it was called dual manifestation. You could take a feat to get an extra manifestation. Sometimes Genasi could change their element.
Oh, what?
Sometimes it'd be willing, sometimes not. So maybe they were born air, but something happened. They became a water Genasi at some point.
What?
Yeah, and there was a feat where it's like you could take an extra manifestation, and at the end of a short rest, you could change it.
What?
And you would get the
just,
benefit of the other one instead of the one that you started with.
So it's like preparing spells almost.
Kind of like that, yeah. And then later on in 4th edition, there was a Paragon path called Elemental Tempest, where you could literally exude 2 types at once.
Oh,
so
shoot.
like storm and fire, like you're half storm and half fire, like, and you could do storm and fire shit.
That seems super complicated.
Yeah, but it's also really fun.
That also seems
and I hope it makes a comeback because it's not something you can do in 5th edition. But I'd like to see some dual manifestation.
This is my fire hand. This is the hand I backslap bitches with.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. I don't think we actually mentioned this. We should have mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. Well, we did kind of. We're not in the player's handbook anymore. We've moved outside of that when it comes to races. And this race can be found in the Elemental Evil Player's Companion, which is 100% free to download from DungeonsandDragons.com. They release this simultaneously with their adventure, the Elemental Evil Adventure, I think it was called. No, Temple of the Elemental Evil, that's what it was. And they decided to release this PDF, which I think you can get a physical copy for, but you have to pay for it. But the PDF's free, and it has 4 races in it and some new spells and stuff. And yeah, so if you're interested in rolling in Genasi, like, it's totally free. You don't have to buy a book.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I think I'm pretty much done talking about Genasi. I don't really have too much else to say. Did you have any questions?
No, I don't really have too many questions. I feel like this is one of the races I actually read up on the most, just because when I was like trying to get into D&D, this is what I was looking at in the player's handbook the most. Like, oh man, I could play a dwarf. That seems awesome. Oh man, I could like play any of this stuff, but that's what jumped out at me the most. And I feel like they're really interesting, especially there's like a lot of elemental stuff out there, you know, in pop culture and things like that for you to kind of incorporate into your role-playing experience. But yeah, just like working with your DM is probably one of the best ways to flesh out a Genasi character, because you don't really know what's going on with the Genasi in there.
Yeah, and Genasi are they're very open to reflavoring. I mean, they're so changeable as it is, like it just in their appearance. There's a lot you could do with the Genasi. One thing actually I meant to bring up earlier, and I'm glad I remember it now, is in 4th edition they actually had Abyssal Genasi, which was because in 4th edition lore, the elemental chaos was the only thing separating the abyss from consuming fucking everything.
Oh, shit.
So, like, the elemental chaos touched the abyss, and because of that, there were Genasi that could be influenced by the abyss. And basically what it did was it kind of, like, inverted and corrupted their element. And they only did it for the 4 main elements, fire, water, earth, and air. But yeah, like, there was, like, Plague Soul Genasi and Caustic Genasi.
What the
Cinder
hell?
Soul Genasi. And I think Ash might have been the other one. Yeah, so...
Oh, that sounds wild.
And they were
like
pretty cool. Like, this came out like way later 4th edition, so maybe
We're the
we'll
negative
see that too.
squad.
Yeah, we're the negative squad. We're the Bizarro Genasi. But, like, my point here is that, like, Genasi are inherently... influenced by their environment heavily. They're just so changeable, much like the elements. Like, they can be shaped by what surrounds them.
Okay.
And so you might want to reflavor your Genasi depending on like the setting you're playing in.
So I guess I did come up with a question there.
Yeah.
Like I know we talked about in the Dragonborn, like if a dragon came across a Dragonborn, what would happen? If a genie came across a Genasi person of like the same element, are they more forgiving in terms of like
Genies ignore their children so drastically they're inconsequential to them.
Oh,
Like, yeah, genies are just so self-serving.
it just might be like, oh hey,
Yeah.
squish.
Yeah, well, I mean,
If that's their prerogative.
if they're nasty like that, but they're more likely to be like, "Oh, that's interesting. You're one of mine." moves on.
Yeah, right.
That's how genies are.
Okay.
Genies are dicks. All right. I think we're done.
Yeah, let's call it a game.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
The Dungeoncast.